Okay?
Okay.
Till that time, please be online and mute your mic. Okay? Let's start.
Okay.
Today, we are in a class where we are going to start something about the Microsoft certification path. Okay, and this is the overview of the certification. Let's go ahead and start the overview so that we can have a brief idea what we are going to do now. Okay, so let's go to the second slide, and in the second slide you can see that there is certain certifications available in Microsoft like that way. Okay, the first thing is associate level. That means the basic beginners who are just joining Microsoft and start doing their task in associate mode, they are going to do the MCSA certification first, which is equivalent like a associate. Then we can go ahead for the expert position. For expertise, we have to do MCSE, and for masters, we have to do Microsoft Certified Solution Master, which is MCSA. Okay. So currently this course is for the experts, because we all available in this session. We all have some certain qualities. We have some work experience. So based on that, you already know how to deal with servers, how to install a server operating system. So we are just go forward to the MCSE part in this session. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the next slide. This is the papers we have to cover in this. Okay, the papers, exam paper number 410. That means this is for installation and configuration of Windows Server 2012. Exam 411, which is stands for administrating Windows Server 2012, and 412, which is configuring advanced Windows Server 2012. These three papers, if you complete the three papers, then you can get a certificate of Microsoft Certified Solution Associate, which is MCSA. Okay, after completed the MCSA, you can go ahead for the rest of the proposal like MCSE and MCTS, other things. But let's take a look at the older version. That means if someone in this class having already have a MCSA certificate of 2008 or backdated version, so they can have a single paper of exam, that is 417, to upgrade your skill on MCSA Windows Server 2012. This is a single paper you have to do, and after completing this 417, you can upgrade your skill set from 2008 to 2012 directly. Let's go ahead and take a look of the certification path. After completing MCSA in 2012 server, what we can do now? What is our next path? These are the paths available. The first is, after completing MCSA, we can go for server infrastructure, we can go for desktop infrastructure, we can go for private cloud, we can go for messaging, we can go for SharePoint, we can go for communication. Now it's up to you. Based on that, we will process. In our session, we will focus on the server infrastructure part along with the messaging part. Okay. So this is the basic overview of your certification path, where you can start your journey from today onwards. So let's take a look about the exam experience. What is inside the exam? You can have approximately 50 questions on each exam. That means each paper having 50 number of questions. 700 is your passing marks. Okay, no partial credit is available. Each exam has a cut score, which is the minimum correct of passing. That means 70% you have to complete at least 70% to pass the exam. This is a very critical thing. You have to take it very seriously while learning, because every session is critical for this. Okay, you have to attend every theory and practical session to get 100% assurance or 100% preparation to get the maximum number out of this 50 question per paper. So after completing the entire session, we will have a demo exam so that you can be prepared for this, how the exam will happen, and you will learn, you will understand the scenario, how you can get your MCSA certification from Microsoft. So these are the URL, as you can see, this is the URL from where you can get the exam format and questions type. Microsoft has available some basic information about the students who are going to take Microsoft certifications. You can go ahead and go to the Microsoft Learning platform and you can download or see what are the challenges, how the question set are prepared, what is the demo questions are available. You can have a look and you can practice in yourself. The next, exam objective. In here, I am going to show Prometric is one of the certification partner of Microsoft by which you can, there is two partners available in India currently. One is Prometric, one is Pearson. Both can have the facility to arrange your schedule for the certification program. Although the objectives of the exam is that is available on the Microsoft website as well. You can go to the Microsoft Learning platform and choose whatever you want, what certification you want to do, and you can schedule from here. On the right hand side of the slide, I can give you a demo of the 70-400 train paper overview. Okay, where you can see the language type, the publication date, audience, okay, technology, and the type of the exam. You can schedule it from here. Should be used to guide your learning. This is the basic thing. In the downstairs, if you can explore the show all items, you can see there is some basic guideline available for the learners or the students who are going to take the certification exams. Identify your knowledge gap before go for the final exam. That means before go for the final exam, you have to prepare yourself very well, so there is no gap in your knowledge. Provide a structural of your revision and revise yourself each and every point, each and every subject, so that you can have an idea what are the common areas of questions. Allow you to maximize your study time. That will help you to maximize your study time. That means this training is not at all the thing. You have to prepare yourself by increasing your study time. You have to make yourself free for at least 2 or 3 hours per day for study. If you can do that, you can get an opportunity to face Microsoft exam and get it done in a single shot. Thank you. We are going to end this basic slide. So now I can understand that we all have an idea about the certification paths, right? So you also have an idea about the certification path, how the certification is going on, what are the papers available, and what are the papers we are going to be prepared for. Let's go to the next slide. We are going to start our first class on 410. Are you able to view my screen? Just chat. Give me answer on your chat box. Yes or no? Okay, let's start it. Okay, great. Thanks. Let's start it. Windows Server 2012. The exam paper is 17410. And the subject is Windows Server 2012 edition. We are going to understand what are the OS version available in 2012 in this slide. Okay. So let's take a look at this slide. This is the basic overview of our slide, and we are especially thankful for FCS Studies who have given us the opportunity to start this session online. So let's take a look at my profile here. This is about my profile. Myself, Koustov, and I've completed my MCP, MCTS, MCSA, and MCSE messaging as well. So I'm going to be your tutor for this class. Okay, so let's go ahead and start the session now. This is our first option, that is operating system edition you choose should be based on which circumstances. That means you are here to be administrator. You are here to serve your services to an organization. So before start your organization task, you should understand when selecting a operating system, what are the basic things you should do, you should measure first to choose an operating system. The first thing is the roles you intend the server to perform. That means suppose you want to have a DHCP server installed on a server. In that case, you may not require Windows Server 2016 because the DHCP server may be feasible in 2003 server as well. So that may be serve your purpose. So this is one of the main point, key point by which you can select your destination operating system for installation. The first thing is the roles you intend the server to perform. You are installing a server for which role that is measured. The second important thing is the virtualization strategy you intend to implement. That means if you want to implement a virtualization strategy, in that case you have to select the appropriate operating system who are support that kind of stuff. The third and most important thing is the licensing strategy. That means in modern operating system version like 2012, 2016 and 2019, we all know there is some licensing difference. So we're going to start learn about what are the different type of licensing available. But for now, you have to understand that you have to select a server operating system based on the licensing strategy. What is the use of this license? You have to understand that first. And here we have a special note that compared with Windows Server 2008, Microsoft has simplified the process of selecting a server edition by reducing the available products. So this is other difference which is happening 2012 rather than 2008. 2008 may be a difference from 2012 in various circumstances. We're going to learn that in our next slide. But for now, you have to understand that there is a difference in simplification process of selecting the Windows Server Edition to reduce the available product in Microsoft. As with Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows 2012 required a 64-bit architecture only. That means if you can go for 2008, there is two type of version you can get. One is 64-bit operating system and another is 32-bit operating system in 2008. But in 2012, there is only one processor architecture which is supported, that is 64-bit. That means there is no 32-bit operating system available in 2012. All the 32-bit version have been eliminated. So 32-bit version are now eliminated in 2012 server. And for the first time since Windows NT Server 4.0 release, there will be no build supporting Itanium processors. Itanium processors are a type of processors which are no longer supported in this 2012 or later versions. So these are the key points by which you can select your operating system editions. Okay. So let's start for the next slide.
অফিস গিয়েছিলি এটা করে আসলাম না তো
Just hold on. I think there is some issue in mic. Just be online. Thank you. Let's take a look on this. Windows Server editions. What are the version of, what are the editions available in Windows Server 2012? The first thing is Windows Server 2012 Datacenter Edition. We can have a Datacenter Edition of operating system, Windows Server 2012 Standard Edition, Windows Server 2012 Essentials Edition, Windows Server 2012 Foundation Edition. So these are the basic 4 editions available in 2012. Okay. So what are the difference between this version, these editions? Let's see in the next slide. When you choose Windows Server 2012 Datacenter, let's see. The Datacenter Edition is designed for large and powerful servers. This is the first thing. That means the Datacenter Edition operating system specially designed for large and powerful server with up to 64 processor support. This is a huge, okay. So Datacenter basically use an enterprise environment where the processing capacity required very high, up to 64 number of processors, and fault tolerance features such as hot add processor support. Fault tolerant will later on, when we are going to discuss about the virtualization, we'll discuss on later. But as of now, you have to understand fault tolerance is a feature by which we can ensure the maximum uptime of a VMware guest or a virtual guest. This feature are supported in Datacenter Edition of 2012. As a result, the edition is available only through the Microsoft Volume Licensing Program, which is known as VLSC, and the original equipment manufacturers, which is called OEMs bundle with a server. It is clear. Now we can elaborate it that in Datacenter Edition, first thing is we have to use it in Enterprise Edition. Second, it has support of up to 64 processors. Third, it supports fault tolerant feature. Fourth, it is a edition which is available in VLSC as well as OEM only. Retailers cannot sell Datacenter Edition of 2012 server. So let's take a look at the next slide. When we are going to use Windows Server 2012 Standard, the Standard Edition includes the full set of Windows Server 2008 feature. It is something which have all the feature available in 2012. Different from the Datacenter Edition, only the number of virtual machine VM instance permitted by the licenses. So the difference is only it support only 2 number of virtual licenses, virtual instance in it. That is the only difference. But the rest of the thing, it has the same feature like Datacenter. But it is for mid-range organization, they can use Standard. Because everything is same, only the difference is in licensing part. So we have to understand the licensing in the later slide. Next, when we can choose Windows Server 2012 Essential Edition. Let's see. The Essential Edition includes nearly all of the features in the Standard and Datacenter editions. That means it is clear that the Essential have the feature which is available in Standard as well as in Datacenter, except for the server core, Hyper-V, and Active Directory Federation services. That means it has all the feature, all the things available in Standard and Datacenter, except the server core feature, except the Hyper-V and the Microsoft Active Directory Federation services, which is known as ADFS. The edition is limited to 1 physical or virtual server instance. That means there is some difference in licensing as well, and a maximum of 25 users. So you can understand that this essential only support 25 number of users in LAN, which makes it for very small organization. That means the organization who have 10 or 20 number of users available in their office, they can use essential. There is certain difference like server core. Okay, Orgo have requested to repeat this one. Okay, I will repeat it. Let's see, let's start from the beginning. The question is, when an administrator choose a Windows Server 2012 Essential Edition. So this has all the features that is available in Standard and Datacenter Edition, but there is certain thing which is not available in the Essential part. That is, Server Core Edition is not available in Essential, Hyper-V is not available in the Essential, and Active Directory Federation Services is not available in the Essential. And this is the service level difference, and it is also having difference in licensing. That means it has only support of one physical or one virtual instance. It is only support one physical or one virtual. That means it can be installed in a physical server or physical machine, or it can be installed in a virtual machine. Each virtual machine needs one essential license, and it supports maximum 25 number of users. This is the limitation of essential. That means it is designed for the small office network with 10 or 20 people, around 25 people. They can use the services from the essential server. Essential do not support more than 25 number of users. So this is a limitation of Essential Edition. Hope this is clear now, Orgo. The next slide. When Windows Server 2012 Foundation. When we can look at the Foundation Edition, this is a reduced version of the operating system designed for small business that required only basic server features such as file and print services and the application support. This edition includes no virtualization lights. No virtualization lights. There is no virtualization support available in the Foundation Edition, and it is limited to 15 number of users only. So you can understand the difference. Foundation is different from the Essential as well. In which circumstance, in which points, it has a reduced version of operating system. This is the first difference. Designed for small business, that means within limited to the 15 users, that required only a basic server feature such as file share, print share, etc. and application support. These are the features which is available in this Foundation Edition, and the edition includes no virtual rights. That means it do not support any virtualization instance. That means Foundation can only be installed in a physical hardware. You cannot or will not install Foundation Edition in any virtual machine, and it has limitation to 15 user support, which is very limited in today's world. It is for small businesses. Okay, it is clear now. Let's move to the next slide. Let's take a look about the server virtualization platform. Supporting server virtualization 1.0. The Windows Server 2012 Datacenter and Standard Edition both include the support for Hyper-V. Clear? So the Datacenter Edition and the Standard Edition both have support for the Hyper-V virtualization, but they have vary in number of VMs permitted their license. So there is some difference between their licensing to have number of VMs in it. Each running instance of the Windows Server 2012, that means each of the 2012 instance classified as being a physical operating system environment which is POS, or a virtual operating system environment, which is WOS. Let's take a look to understand what is POS and what is WOS here. If you can understand what is POS, POS means the physical operating system environment, each and every physical hardware where you can install an operating system is known as physical operating system environment, which is called POS. And if you install a virtualization install, that means you configured a Windows 2012 Hyper-V. Post that, under this Hyper-V, you will create another 2012 instance in virtualization. So in that case, the physical environment, which operating system you have installed, that may be 2008, that may be 2012, that may be other operating system, that is called a POS. That means physical operating system environment, and the virtual instance is known as WOS, W-O-S-E, WOS. Okay? When you procure a 2012 license, you can perform a POS installation operating system. As always, after installing the Hyper-V role, you can now create VMs to perform WOS installation on them. It is clear? So what it is saying if you going to purchase a Windows 2012 Server Edition, that may be a Datacenter Edition, that may be a Standard Edition. After purchasing the license, you can install the operating system on a physical hardware of a machine. After installing that, you can install Hyper-V and you can do virtual instance of it. Then you can install the virtual instance as well. The number of WOS means the number of virtual instance installed permitted by the license depend on the edition you purchased. That means which edition of operating system you are using in the POS, that depends how many number of virtual instance you can create in the WOS mode. Let's take a look about the difference of licensing. Supporting virtual server infrastructure in 1.1. Physical and virtual instance are supported by the Windows Server 2012 editions. Here I can make a small graph where you can understand what is the support currently available in the present licensing in 2012 editions. So in the left button I have mentioned the editions. In the middle, I have the POS, and on the right, I have the WOS instance. In the left side, Datacenter Edition, you can see we can install a Datacenter Edition in one POS instance. One POS instance, that means one physical server. If you purchase a Datacenter Edition of operating system in 2012, you can install that operating system in a physical hardware. And you can have unlimited number of WOS instance, virtual instance. There is no more license is required. You can install unlimited number of Datacenter Editions virtual licenses. When you choose a standard operating system, you can have the option to install one POS instance. But you have a limitation on WOS, that is 2. That means if you purchase a standard edition of 2012, you can install that particular operating system in one physical hardware, and you will get 2 number of free instances in Hyper-V with the same standard operating system. More than 2, if you want to use more than 2, that means if you have a requirement of using 3 number of virtual instances, in that case you have to purchase another standard license. Next is Foundation. In Foundation version, you can install it only on one POS instance. That means one physical instance. You cannot install the Foundation on any virtual instance. It is not supported for virtual instances. In Essentials, you can do one post or one host. That means if you purchase a essential license of 2012 server, you can install it either in post, either in host. You cannot have post and host equal in the same server because it do not support Hyper-V in it. We have already learned about that key in essential the Hyper-V feature is not available. So in that case you can install a essential operating system either in physical environment, either in virtual environment. Okay, so here I can also have a note, that is license restrictions are not software restrictions. You have to understand this very clearly, that the license restrictions are not the software restriction. The limitations specified in this particular table, that is 101, are those of the licenses, not the softwares. That means the operating system is different and the licensing is something different. Licensing based on that will help you to choose the correct operating system as per your requirement. So these are the basic difference. You can create more than 4 VMs or a copy of Windows Server 2012 Enterprise, but you must purchase additional license to do so. Which means, suppose I'm giving you an example. If you have standard operating system purchased, you have purchased a standard operating system from market. Now you want to install 10 number of physical instances in it. So what do you think? If you purchase one number of license of standard operating system, do you think you have already purchased 10 number of instance license? No, this is not right. So in that case, you have to purchase another 9 licenses, right, to install it on a 10 number of instances. So now the standard edition have virtualization support with 2 virtual hosts, which with the same operating system will be counted as no cost license. That means if you purchase a standard operating system and install in a physical hardware where you install Hyper-V and you install another 2 standard edition of instances of 2012 server, that is completely free. It is included in your license. But if you want another VM to be there in Windows 2012 server standard edition, in that case you have to purchase another standard license. This is the only thing we try to make you understand, that this slide is basically showing you the difference of licensing, not the software restriction. There is no such thing which is restricted that particular software to, or preventing the software to do something or to install something. You can do whatever you want. Only the difference, to be compliant in each and every organization, you have to understand the licensing of the server. Then you can choose your appropriate version of operating system while installing in a physical or in a virtual environment. Hope this is clear to all of you. Let's move to the next slide. Server licensing. That means in server licensing, we have to know from where we can purchase the licenses and who are the authorized partner or where we can get this particular license. The first thing is Microsoft provides several different sales channels for Microsoft Server 2012 license. That means there is multiple way, multiple other platforms from where you can purchase Windows Server 2012 licenses. And not all the editions are available through all the channels. That means all the license types are not available in all the partners, all the channels. Licensing of Windows Server 2012 includes purchasing license of both server and clients. That means you have to purchase license for server as well as client. The client license is known as CAS. Okay? And there are many options for each one. Those are listed below in this. The first thing is we have to mention here, we have editions. That means in Datacenter Edition, if you want to purchase a Datacenter Edition, you can go to the volume licensing portal, or you can have the license from the OEM. But you cannot get the license from the retail shop, which is available in your locality. They cannot give you the data center license. So if you decided to purchase a data center edition of licenses, so you have to know where to go, where to find the licenses for purchasing. Okay? For that, you can go to the volume licensing portal, which is known as VLSC. If you can go on the Google and type VLSC, you can directly have the link to navigate to this particular portal, which is known as VLSC. VLSC having some dependency that you must have a Microsoft registered email address to access VLSC portals. And another is OEM. That means if you purchase a physical hardware of a server and you have an option to include Data Center Edition on it, you can purchase from the OEM as well. Let's look at the next slide. Just give me a minute. I have received some chat request. Let me understand what is that. For all joiners, place F11 to full screen. Okay. This is for Orgo. This is not for me. Guys, let's start now. So I think I am here. Okay. Now, next we have to go understand the standard edition. Okay. In standard edition, what we can see, we can get the standard edition from the retail shop. Yes, we can get it from the retail shop. We can get it from the volume licensing, and OEM can also provide us the standard edition of license, including with their hardware. In foundation, the retail do not have rights to sell foundation version of operating system, as well as we cannot get it from VLSC portal. That means Microsoft volume licensing portal. It can be only found with the OEMs. OEM can only provide us the foundation version of operating system. The next part is essential. In essential edition, we can get it from anywhere in the market. That means from the retail, from volume licensing, and as well as from OEM. We can get it from this 3 channel as well. So this is the basic idea, that if you want to purchase a particular edition of operating system, where to go, where you can find that licensing, and from where you can purchase. If a retail going to give you a proposal to sell data center, that means that is not the way you can purchase. Okay, you can purchase it from VLSC or from the OEM. In here, OEM means, suppose you can purchase a HP server, HP Proliant DL3560, and your OEM asks you whether you want to have data center license in it or not. If you have a legitimate demand to enable your data center edition on that particular hardware, you can get it. Or Microsoft is the OEM for this particular application of the software, you can directly get it from the Microsoft as well. Let's move to the next slide. Now we are moving to the next slide, where we have to understand that the installation requirements of 2012 server. Let's see what is the installation requirements. Okay. In installation, if your computer has less than the following hardware specification, Windows Server 2012 will not install currently, possibly at all. That means these are the minimum requirement for installing Windows Server 2012 operating system. The first thing is 1.4 gigahertz of 64-bit processor architecture. That means you need a 64-bit processor architecture. This is important. And the processor speed should be 1.4 gigahertz. Okay? Just hold on, I have a request to turn off my camera. Hold on, be online. Right now. Hope this is right now. Okay, the next part is 512 MB of RAM minimum. It required minimum 512 MB of RAM. Next is 32 GB available space is required minimum. Minimum that is required 32 GB of available space in your hard disk. DVD drive to install the operating system. In modern hardware, there is some OTG or pen drive support is available, but we recommend to have DVD drive to install the operating system. Super VGA, at least you have 800 cross 600 or any higher resolutions. That means the minimum resolution which is required is 800 into 600 pixels. Keyboard and mouse should be there. Either or you cannot able to put or input any of the like password or any other things in this during the installation. And internet access is also a mandate point to activate your server license, as well as you have to update the server. That means Windows Server patching is also a recommended thing. 32 GB available disk space should be considered as absolute minimum. That means this is the ultimate minimum disk which is required for 2012 server. The system partition will need extra space if you install the system over a network, or if your computer has more than 16 GB of RAM installed. The additional disk space is required for paging, hibernating, and dump file. Okay, what is paging, what is hibernating, and what is dump file? We will understand later on when we do our practical session. You please take a note on this, that you have to learn what is paging and how to configure the page memory, and next how the hibernate works in a server. It is not recommended to use hibernate in a server, although there is an option to being hibernate. And the next is dump file, how to get the dump file from the server, what is the file format, and how we can read the dump files. We will take it on our practical session. Sorry. In practice, you are unlikely to compare across a computer with 32 gig of RAM and only 32 gig of disk space. It is not recommended. It is not recommended. If your computer have 32 GB of RAM, you have only the 32 GB of disk space in it. If you do so, it may require additional storage hardware. That means it may be comes from storage, it may be from your server local hard disk, it may be from any other source, but it will require some more space to give you the optimal performance of the server. So this is the minimum requirement to install a operating system like 2012. Any of the 2012 edition should match this minimum requirement. Without this minimum requirement, you cannot go further. Let's take a look on the next slide. So, in this session, what we have learned? In this session, we have learned about what are the operating systems available in the market, what are the version of 2012 operating system, how we can choose a version, or how we can select a Windows 2012 edition based on our requirement, based on the virtualization, and based on the licensing. What is POS and what is WOS? What is the licensing support of POS and WOS in different 2012 editions? And now we have learned about the minimum installation requirement of Windows Server 2012. Right? So everything we have done, we have to do a practical session on it about installation of Windows Server. During that time, we have to choose based on our requirement. We can choose Datacenter Edition, we can choose Standard Edition, we can do it. And we can do an installation of POS and WOS as well. But always keep in mind, after installation, we have to take a look at the page file and page file configuration. We have to also understand what is the use of the page file. And the next part is we have to understand how the virtualization works, how the licensing works, how we can activate a license on a server. These are the things which we'll cover in our next practical session. Okay? For Q&A, still we have some time to continue our session. We will continue in our next slide. But for Q&A, you can please type this website. This is the website for our live Q&A where you can collaborate, what we can collaborate, and we can share our views. We can ask questions and get the answer from the rest of the team members. Okay? You can go to this particular website. You can register yourself. This is completely our own website and it is completely free for all. You can ask your question, whatever question you have, whatever queries you have, so that we can take a look and answer. Let's take a look and go for the next slide.
Koustov,
Yes, please.
yes, you just copy the link and paste in the chat so that everyone can take it from there.
Okay, great idea. Okay, just give me a minute so that I can do that for you.
Yes.
Just be online.
Message in the chat.
Definitely I can do that.
Okay.
Hope you have. I already shared, okay? Next slide. This is a very important thing we have to do and you have to understand it very well, because this is a very critical slide we are going to start now. Practical session, whatever we have, the practical session that will be done in a separate class. Okay? In this class, we will go through our theoretical knowledge only. So let's start our new slide. This slide is for 7410 exam and especially for Windows Server Core Editions. In this slide, we will understand what is Windows Server Core Edition, what is the use of this Core Edition, and when we can select a Core Edition of operating system. This is all about me.
Hello.
Next slide. Just hold on. I think there is some. Okay, great. Okay, let's start, guys. Maximum hardware configuration in Windows Server version that you should know. Oh my God. So we have to understand why the 2012 server comes and what is the basic feature-wise difference available in the 2008 R2 and Windows Server 2012. In this slide, we can understand as a part of the Microsoft increase the instances or virtualization cloud in this server products, that they have increased the maximum hardware configuration significantly for the Windows Server 2012. That means the what we can understand about the server capacity. We basically measure the server capacity based on the number of processor, based on the amount of RAM, based on the support of the particular server. So here in this chart you can see in Windows Server 2008 R2 we have maximum support of logical processor up to 256 number of processor. Okay, that are logical processors. Logical processor maximum we can have 256 number of logical processor in Windows Server 2008 R2, whereas 2008 R2 have 2 TB of RAM support, and in the case of failover cluster nodes, the particular 2008 R2 supports 16 number of failover nodes in max. But in 2012, what are the maximum hardware configuration changes happen? That is, now in 2012, it can support up to 640 number of logical processors, which is around more than double of 2008 R2. It supports 4 TB of RAM. That means if you install a Windows Server 2012 operating system, it can have 4 TB of RAM in a par machine. That means in a POS or in a VOS installation, you can assign 4 TB of RAM max. In failover cluster nodes, Windows Server 2012 support 63 number of failover nodes, which is more than double we have in 2008 R2. This is the maximum hardware configuration in Windows Server version, which is the change happening in 2008 R2 and 2012. Choosing installation options using server core. So we have to understand, in 2012 we will have a option of server core installation. If you have any experience of Windows Server installation, you will heard about this term, Windows Server Core. So what is Windows Server Core? Let's see. Windows Server 2012 includes a installation option that address those old complaints, where you can select the Windows Server Core installation option. You get a stripped down version of the operating system. There is no start menu, no desktop, no Explorer shell, no Microsoft Management Console, that is called MMC, and no visibility on the graphics application. That means Microsoft developed a CLI based operating system. This is a CLI platform of Windows Server 2012. It do not have any desktop, it do not have any cell, any Microsoft Management Console, and any visual or graphical application view. You can only see a DOS screen, which is just beside in the right hand side of the screen. So this is the all you can have after installing a core version. So this is the enhancement which is done. And now the question arises, why core? Why we are going to use a server core? It even do not have any visualization. It only have a DOS prompt. So how you can start working on it? What is the use of this particular code? Let's see in the next slide. Let's understand what is server core. Server core is not a separate product or addition. This is the first thing you have to understand. It is not a different product. It is the same product, absolutely same product you installed in later version, that means Datacenter, Enterprise, other version, Standard and all. It is an installation option included with Windows Server 2012 Standard and Datacenter Edition. That means the core edition only available in Standard and Datacenter. It do not have facility to install in other Foundation and Essential. It can be found on only on the Datacenter and Standard Edition. This is the first thing. Second thing, there is no separate product. That means it is same. If you install a Windows Server 2012 Standard Core Edition, that means you get a same feature like Windows Server 2012 Standard GUI platform. But there is some certain difference in CLI. To remove the GUI platform, there is certain changes which has been done, like as we just learned, the MMC is no longer there in the CLI mode. That means in the core edition. So we'll later on we'll understand what are the things that is changed in server core, and we'll have a session where we can install a server core edition and manage our server core edition. Before going to that particular slide, we have to understand why we are going to use server core. Let's see in the next slide. The advantages of running Windows Server using server core. So why we are going to use the Windows Server? These are the advantage we can get if we can run a Windows Server core. The first thing is hardware resource conversion. This is the main important thing. Server cores eliminate some of the most memory and processor initiative elements of the Windows Server 2012 operating system. That means you all know to run a GUI platform we need more RAM, more disk space, more everything is required more and more. So if we are going to use a CLI platform where no GUI is required, no graphics are required, so in that case we will save our memory, we will save our processor, we will save our disk space. Thus this particular thing devoting more of the system hardware to running the essential services. That means instead wasting the RAM, instead wasting the processor capacity in GUI, we can use server code to utilize its maximum to serve the services, essential services that are installed in the server core editions. This is the first important point why we are going to use server core. The first thing is hardware resource. Okay. The second thing is reduce disk space. Server core required less disk space for the installed operating system elements, as well as a less swap space as well. So what is swap space? It is just like a page file. Okay, this is a space of a hard disk which actually react like a RAM, but it is not a RAM. It is a part of a hard disk which contains some of the static data to process, to communicate with the RAM faster, which maximize the utilization of server storage resources. So this is the another important thing we have to understand. Reduced disk space is the second point where we can understand that server core required a less disk space for installation. The first thing. That means just before this slide we have understand the minimum requirement of Windows Server 2012 edition, where we have learned about the 32 gig space in the hard disk is minimum required. So in case you are going to use Windows Server core, that is enough for you. That is enough for you, because there is no longer required that much of space, because we are not going to use any GUI. But what a good news for you all, that if you are using a server core and now you are going to convert that particular server core in a GUI mode, there is certain command available in PowerShell by which you can turn your server core edition to a GUI platform. We will learn it later on. Okay. Next important thing is reduce patch frequency. You know what is the pain of Windows patching nowadays. Windows is releasing security critical patches every month, second week of Wednesday. So there is a scheduled job of your administrator to install frequent updates on the server to keep the server infrastructure secure and updated. If we are going to use server core, we can have a facility to reduce the patch frequency. Why? Let's see. The graphical elements of Windows Server 2012 are among of the most frequent patches. So, running server core reduce the number of patches that administrator must apply. Fewer patches also mean fewer server restarts or less downtime. The most important thing, just think about an enterprise environment. In enterprise environment, downtime is a critical thing. In banks, in financial services, in insurance, where you cannot, business will not allow you to restart the server every month for Windows patching. So if you are going to use a server core edition instead of server GUI, there is a chances to reduce the patch frequency. So if you reduce the patch frequency, that means it needs minimum number of restart or downtime. Next, reduce attacked surface. This is one of the major important point. The less software there is running on the computer, the fewer the entrants there are for attack or exploit. That means, suppose you are using a GUI platform where you install third-party software or any product to manage particular from this server. For attackers, this is very easy to exploit you from the GUI platform instead of using server core, because server core do not have that much of third-party support, third-party application support. In that case, you will not able to install any other application or other third-party application. In that case, you will reduce the attack surface. Attacker will not able to exploit you with any third party or any other things. There is no web browser as well, so you cannot even browse internet from the core server core edition. So if you do not have the Internet Explorer to browse the internet, then the internet kind of things cannot hit you, cannot exploit you on the server core edition. This is one of the major benefit you have. Server core reduce the potential openings by the operating system, increasing its overall security. This is correct. See, what is that? That is, it will increase your potential operating percentage, which is different from GUI. In GUI, there is some option of username, password and all. If someone knows, if someone stole your username and password, they can easily access whatever they want, whatever they want. But in the core edition, there is some benefit. This will increase your overall security of the infrastructure. If you have server core installed in your data center and someone from the outside want to view or want to have a look at the server, if they say they have seen there is only a DOS prompt which is available, they are less interested to look into it, because this is more secure than a GUI platform. Here we have to know one more thing, from where the server code first starts. Microsoft first introduced the Windows Server Code installation option in Windows Server 2008 onwards. That means from 2008 onwards we are getting an option of Server Code Edition installation. That means if you are going to find a Server Code Edition in 2003 server, you will not get it. To get the server code version, you have to use 2008 or any of the higher editions, 2008 up to 2012, 2016 or any other. And it will also be a part, it is only available in Datacenter and Standard Edition. Let's move to the next slide. Server core capabilities. In addition to optimizing most of the graphical interface, a server core installation omits some of the server roles found in a server with a GUI installation. However, the server core option in Windows Server 2012 includes 13 out of 19 roles. That means, what it's trying to say is, if you going to install a Windows Server 2012 GUI platform, you will get 19 number of roles to configure. You can get 19 number of roles, 19 number of roles. But if you going to use Core Edition, you will get only 13 out of 19. Plus support for SQL Server 2012 as opposed only in 10 roles in Windows Server 2012 R2. That means it will support, additionally it will support SQL Server supporter. That means you can use the server code as a database server. And what is the difference between 2008 R2 and 2012? In 2008 R2 it will only support number of 10 number of rows, whereas in 2012 we have support of 13 number of rows out of total 19. Okay, in 2008 R2 we have 10 number of rows in GUI mode, and we can get 9 out of 10 number of rows in server code in 2008 R2 and 9 number of rows in 2008 server. Hope this is clear. Let me go through it again. I think there is certain thing what I puzzled. In addition of omitting most of the graphical interfaces, server code installation omits some of the server feature, that is called server code, and some of the server feature has been removed in the Core Edition. In 2012 server, if we use GUI platform, we will get 19 number of roles. If we use Server Code Edition, we can get 13 out of 19. This is the first thing. Additionally, in 2012 Core Edition, it supports SQL Server. SQL Server 2012 edition. Great. And opposed to only 10 roles in 2008 R2. That means on 2008 R2, if we use server code, in that case we will get 10 number of roles to configure. And if we use Windows Server 2008 Core editions, in that case we will get 9 number of roles to configure. Let's move to the next slide. Roles available in the server code installation. What are the services that we can use in Server Code Edition? We can install Active Directory certificate services. We can install Active Directory domain services. We can install Active Directory lightweight directory services. We can install Active Directory write management services. We can use it for DHCP. We can use it for DNS, file server, Hyper-V, print server, remote desktop services, remote access, IIS, and WSUS, which is known as Windows Server Update Service. So these are the roles which is available in a core installation. So if we are going to install a core edition, we have to keep in mind what type of role we are going to use in this particular core edition. These are the services or roles which can be configured in a core edition of 2012 server. The next part. Roles that are not available in the server core installation. That means which is installation in GUI platform as well, but it is not available in core installation. So in core installation, Active Directory Federation services are no longer available. Application server is no longer available in core. Hack server is no longer available in core. Network policy and access services are no longer available in core. Remote desktop services are no longer available in core. Remote desktop gateway, remote desktop session host, remote desktop web access. These are the services which cannot be configured in the core installation. As well as we do not have volume activation service and Windows deployment services available in core edition. So these are the major difference between roles available and roles which are not available. Hope you can understand that now. After doing our first practical class, we can understand what are the total 20 number of services or role we can configure in a server in GUI. Then post that we can install a core edition of the server in our practical classes, where we can have a look at the roles available in this server. Let's see in the next slide. Minimal server infrastructure. In 2012, this is a new thing which comes in market. This is very important to understand for all of you that there is something which is not a core edition, not a full GUI. That is called a minimal server interface. The minimal server interface is a setting that removes some of the most hardware interactive elements from the graphical interface. You can understand that minimal server interface is a setting. It is not an edition or it is not an installation option. That means if you have a Windows Server Datacenter Edition installed in a server, and now you want to use minimal server interface to avoid most of the graphical interface related problem, in that case there is a setting in 2012 server by which you can use the minimal hardware to run the operating system using the minimal server interface option. These elements includes Internet Explorer and the components that make up Windows Shell, including the desktop, Windows Explorer, and Windows 8 desktop apps. These are the things that includes with Internet Explorer that may be stopped or may be removed. Components that make up Windows Shell include the desktop, Windows Explorer, and Windows 8 desktop app. If you can have a look on the 2012 server, you can, on the start menu, you can see there is some apps-based services are available in 2012. Also omitted are the control panel items. In some control panel items that have been removed in this minimal server interface option. As a cell exception, including the following. These are the following features that can be removed from the minimal server interface. Program and features, network and sharing center, device and printer center, display, firewall, Windows Update, fonts, and storage space. What's left in the minimal server are the server manager, MMC application, as well as the device manager, and the entire parcel interface. Okay, so if you enable the minimal server interface setting, everything listed here will be removed from the server except server manager, MMC, device manager, and entire parcel module. Hope you can understand what is minimal server interface, right? So let's configure the server minimum interface. How to configure the server minimum interface? In the left panel, you can see there is an option of remove features. Under remove features, you can remove the graphical management tool infrastructure. Using that, you can put your server in minimum server infrastructure or interface. After enabling it, you can use PowerShell, Server Manager, MMC, and Device Manager option. To configure it, these are the steps you can follow. The steps are: you first log on to the server running on the 2012 using the account of administrator privilege. The Server Manager will open. Right? Click to manage. Remove the roles and feature option. After going to the remove and role feature, you can select next option to the selection page. And after that, I can give you an example on the left side. There is a picture available where you can get this feature and you can uncheck it. If you can uncheck it, the size feature will be enabled. That means your system will be, your server will be in minimal server interface. And if you do that, your server will use less hardware for the GUI platform. Feature on demand. These are the things you have to learn. Feature on demand. In previous version of Windows, there is no certain thing available. There is only two things available, that is enable and disable of the feature. But in 2012, there is a different thing available, that is called disable and payload remove. In previous version, what will happen? In previous version, if you remove a role from the server, it will remove from the server console, server manager, but the files which are required for this role will be kept intact on your hard disk. But in 2012, there is an option of disable payload remove, which is a feature using, you can remove the entire thing from the entire hard disk. You can remove a feature not only from the feature control, you can remove it from the hard disk as well. Now, before you please go through this site very well, and let's have a Q&A session on our website, which we already shared. Okay, you please put your commands on the Q&A box so that I can have a look and give you a suitable reply on it. Okay, thank you.